If you didn't understand before, I hope you understand now. Because you're now listening to the We Talkin Podcast, brought to you by Island Girl Team. This podcast, we are literally talking about every and anything with your girl, Kamilah Gumbs. So subscribe from wherever you get your podcast and get ready to talk. Welcome to the 5th episode of the We Talkin Podcast. I'm your host, Kamilah Gumbs, and I do have a special guest host with me, Miss Nian Flemming. And today we're going to interview two members of Parliament, MP Melissa Gumbs and MP Raeyhon Peterson. And we're going to just talk about life as being a parliamentarian and what's happening in Sint Maarten. So before we go into the conversation, just a brief introduction of our guests. So MP Gumbs was born and raised on Sint Maarten, where she attended St. Dominic Primary and St. Dominic High School. Shout out to St. Dominic High School. While in high school, Melissa developed a passion for writing, which led her to pursue the business stream of CXC with the intention to focus on marketing and communication in her later studies. After graduation, she attended the University of St. Maarten, where she majored in business administration, before transferring to St. Thomas University in 2001. And then from there, when she returned back to St. Maarten, she started her career at the Sinesta Maho Beach Resort and Casino as group sales manager and earned a position that earned her the 2009 Manager of the Year at the SHTA Crystal Pineapple Awards. From 2009 until 2016, Melissa was based in The Hague, the Netherlands, where she worked as a market research analyst at the TMF Group. In 2011, she co-founded Unified St. Maarten Connection with fellow St. Maartener Cyril Pfennings, which worked to help students and young professionals from St. Maarten with navigating their move to the Netherlands and developing their professional network. USC still exists today, while in the Netherlands, Melissa, Cyril, and their friend Charles and Pompier developed the idea for what became the Party for Progress, which officially launched in 2019. And of course, outside of her work, Melissa enjoys writing, reading, movies, and video games. And now introduce MP Peterson. So Raeyhon was born in The Hague, the Netherlands, but at the age of 2, his Caribbean-born and bred parents moved to Curacao. Raeyhon was raised in Curacao, where he completed his primary and secondary education. Throughout his childhood, Raeyhon spent majority of his school vacations visiting his extended family in St. Maarten, which led to affinity for the island of his father's birth. And these visits continue after Raeyhon left Curacao in 2009. He also completed his bachelor's in Dutch law at the University of Groningen. Throughout his bachelor's program, he took an interest in kingdom law, which he saw an avenue to gain greater understanding of how the kingdom's democracy work, in particular regarding the island's relationship with the Netherlands. He pursued this field to further his studies, and in 2015 completed his master's in civil law with a special focus on rent law and kingdom law. The same year, Raeyhon made his decision to join his parents, by who at that time had moved to St. Maarten. In 2016, he began his tenure as a civil servant within the Ministry of Romy, working for the Department of Domain Affairs. And by 2017, he was introduced to Melissa via Charlan, and they've worked together planning the Party for Progress Corps. And for these both members, they were both elected on January 9th, and they represent Party for Progress in Parliament. So welcome to the We Talkin Podcast. It's nice having you guys here.
Thank you for having us, for the invitation.
Thank you for having us.
I'm happy to be here.
All right. So we could go straight into the conversation. And of course, these questions are for both of you guys. So what inspired you or motivated you to run for Parliament? And how has that inspiration and motivation driven you to your work as a legislator?
You want to go first? Or? Okay. For me, it was very much my experience in Holland with USC. That student foundation came out of an insurance issue that was facing our students in 2011. Nobody really knew what was happening, and the students were not getting proper information. So from then, through my contact with the students, helping with that situation and the events that USC had thereafter, we realized that a lot of negativity has always been said about Sint Maarten students when they go to Holland. They don't finish, they change their study too often. But we identified that the issue actually lies here on Sint Maarten. If you don't have a good springboard to move to the Netherlands, chances are you're going to have a very tough time acclimating and doing well in school. So we started USC to kind of help mitigate that, but then realized, oh no, it actually goes a whole lot deeper. And that lot deeper is in politics. In the policies that government sets, in the way that we look at what we need as a country, regarding, professions and studies. I mean, you hear it often in Parliament today. We don't have capacity in government for high-level project managers, etc. So, that's what we saw. And we said, we have some ideas on how it could go better, in a more professional project management manner. And decided we should just form our own party. We weighed the option of, maybe joining other parties and stuff. But in the end, it said, it really became clear that we had to do our own thing. And that's what it was for me. I don't know, about Ray.
Well, for me, it was kind of different. As you just read, I didn't really grow up in Sint Maarten, so I didn't go to high school, etc. here. But I did choose to come live here when I was living in Holland. And when I came down, it was basically me wanting to start a career. I was never pretty much interested in politics per se because of what it is, obviously. And being a civil servant, I was placed in a department where I got to see basically the ins and outs of government, the good and the bad. And based off of that, being the fact that, I was a department head and, we were civil servants, our job is to serve the people. And I thought that was not being done in a very responsible manner, with no integrity, to my opinion. I also decided, the problem is not going to be solved from where I'm from. It would have to be from on a higher level. And of course, being in the civil service, you also get into contact with ministers, with MPs. I was pretty much very politically involved before I decided to actually put myself on a slate. And I think it was right after Irma where things kind of like got heated. And that's ironically also when I was introduced to Melissa and the group. And, from the first meeting, it kind of clicked that, this was a group that had the same ideas as me and understood the urgency of, somebody having to step up. And that basically came what it is today. So, I got into it.
That's great. That's awesome. So we're going to jump into talking about the greatness of Parliament. So we're currently in a pandemic, panoramic, Panera Bread. Someone said Pepto-Bismol. That's my favorite one so far. So
upon the river, upon the bank.
Yes, upon the river, upon the bank. So we're dealing with COVID-19. And when it comes to how Sint Maarten has to gain resources in order to survive the pandemic, do you think currently is the government, as well, of course, individual parliamentarians, are we leading the country into the right direction, or are we not coming back and that's it for us? Like, it's over.
That's a good question.
I think for me, I think that government is doing the best job that they can. Let me just put it like that. I think that they are,
given the circumstances,
and given the actual global crisis, because this is not just a hurricane. No, this is something that the entire world is impacted. Given that, I think that they're doing the best that they can, but I do think that they could be doing more. And I think from a parliament perspective, you could kind of see, if you listen carefully and where some people's mentalities are at and where some people's mindsets are at, basically. And I think that for them, it's unfortunate for me to see just a handful of people that are trying to kind of keep us back to what it was pre-COVID, or keep us, back to what it has been for the last 10, 30, 40 odd years. You see that happening, and that's the frustration for me, that I wonder, how are we going to get ourselves out of that? And I think it will take many more voices of reason and logic and, actual global thinking to actually start speaking out and get us to that point. Yeah.
But I think a good question is that, what do you think that could be done? What more could be done, considering we don't have resources? It's constantly said on the floor of Parliament, oh, we're not being creative enough. Like, what else can we do? Well,
no, I think that it's been said. I mean, yes, it was the most recent. Government isn't being creative, but
right.
Room for creativity when you don't have money. And the unfortunate reality is that we've kind of had poor financial management over these last decades, and there is no money. And the money that is coming, it is essentially going to be earmarked for the types of sweeping reforms that we had to have started working on since before we became a country.
That does make sense. Raeyhon, do you have your point of view?
Well, I would have to concur with what Melissa said. She pretty much said it all. I personally find that government did have a role to play as to why we're here. Of course, it was COVID. You have to understand that, everybody was going through it. But by the end of the day, I can also say that I was there when, Melissa, for example, as an individual parliamentarian, way before, the pandemic actually hit, basically said, listen, guys, if we're going to lock down, or if we're going to put all hands on deck, then let's just do it now. Let's do it now, because you can't half manage a country. It's either it's going to come or it's not going to come. And as individual parliamentarians at that point, we were vocal about it, especially Melissa, and that basically became nothing of it. The regatta still happened after that. So, I can honestly say that, you can try as an individual parliamentarian, but like Melissa said, you would need the voice of the people. You would need to have the masses to really understand what's going on before you can actually have some change. Because if there's just one group pushing forward into bringing us back, basically, and the masses is following them because they're louder or they're more vocal, then that's something that we would have to deal with as well. And as individual MPs, that's also part of our responsibility, because we know that just the two of us is not going to work. So it's part of all of us actually to just make the group big and just make people aware. And yeah, it's a long way to go.
That's what really drove our decision to, pay to officially translate the country package. We've had this now. Okay, it was more confidential in the beginning, but since about November, December, it was not confidential. In truth, you could say that since Kirsten Aruba signed it, it technically was not confidential anymore, because there's only small deviations from their country packages to ours. So each island has specific points. And for the rest, it's actually pretty general and pretty wide sweeping, because all three islands have had financial management situations and issues over the years. And, so that people only hear negative and the fear mongering and stuff, moving over to, VAT or BTA way and stuff like that. Those things are, you have to have those discussions. When I hear people also say like they're bringing more taxes, I often wonder how they think government gets money. Governments get money from taxes.
Yeah.
They can, you can jump high, jump low. That's still one of the biggest arenas. The problem is, are you collecting what you have to collect? Is the country, tax compliant, which we already established we're not. We had like what, I think 35-40% compliance or something like that. If you could up that to just 70%, that's already a huge difference. So it's those types of things that we decided, the people have a right to choose and just learn for themselves. And that's what we try to do every day in Parliament.
Makes sense. And you just touch on the whole issue with like the country trying to make money. So of course, taxes, adding more taxes, etc. That's one way to get money from the people. what other ways do you think that as St. Maarten, I know we talk about a lot about diversing in our economy, etc., etc. Like what kind of ways? Because technically we're only like 16 square miles, and 16 square miles you can only do so much. So what ideas do you think you guys have that we can move forward?
Well, the big ticket word has been agriculture since I think during campaign even all the other party, and that's fine. I think it's good to discuss agriculture, especially that COVID has shown us food security. It's something that we should all be concerned about, but it's a lot of talking, I think, and not really planning. You have it, of course, in the community that you have the farmers that kind of do it on their own. Think about, for example, looking at the French side, and it's not fair to compare, but I'm just thinking of like from a mindset perspective. On the French side, they recently started what's called a commercial egg center. So if you have, let's say, 100, 200 laying hens, and you get a certain amount of eggs, you take it to the center, and the center will commercialize it for you. And those eggs will then be sold to the supermarket, so they will be sent to maybe Sable Station, Anguilla, etc. And then you just basically collect, your payment percentage of those sales. And I think that that's a brilliant because it also shows that the farmers on the French side are thinking of in a more cooperative nature. And that's really, I think, the point we have to get to. I've never heard of all the farmers call in to have a discussion and see what do you need. I said it in Parliament when we had the whole talk about agriculture. I asked the farmer, what would you need to do, to feed 25% of people? That's the specific question that I asked her. And she basically said, on 10 acres of land, you can do 10 different ways of farming, and that could get you to feeding maybe 25% of the population. Because that's also a reality. We could never grow enough food to feed everybody.
Yeah.
It's about finding the balance though, and about finding alternative routes to get what we need to get. And I think that there's less, and I understand it. Right now I believe some parliamentarians are making government feel that everything has to be a priority. That's not necessarily a priority. But if everything is a priority, then nothing is a priority, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That is true.
And Ray can tell you already as well about how we leave a lot of money on the table too as government. I was surprised to find that out from his perspective as a civil servant, coming from, the big
the big bad Vromi. No, but a good example was, for example, that I used to work. I was the head of domain affairs, the head of government land, and government land you pay government a fee for it. It's called the long lease canon. And it's not too high of an amount depending on the area, but let's say, for example, we're supposed to rake in, I'm just spitballing here, 8 million a year. We're bringing in maybe 50% of that, maybe. And what you have is a system that's not interlinked with the tax office. So, for example, for me, if I was the head of domain affairs, if I wanted to know if a company has paid their long lease or whatnot, there's no way I can go into the system and just check on, for example, this made brief number. Let me just check what their outstanding is. No, I would have to contact somebody manually, then through email or whatever, from the tax office to tell them, listen, this is the crib number of this company according to my records. Can you please see if they have any outstandings and long lease for me? And they would have to get back to me maybe in a day or two. And now imagine that we have about 3,000 long lease cases. Basically. And the department consisted of me and 3 people. So you can imagine how many people slipped through the cracks. And I started to just check on the biggest companies who were supposed to be paying the most long lease. Let me just check if they were paying. I would find out that some haven't paid for the last 12 years. Some haven't paid for the last 8 years. But, the people who were involved in those companies have been MPs, ministers, etc. So it was basically just me seeing what's going on. And I'm like, So I started to bill everybody. And that's when I got into it. And the rest is history, basically.
Yeah. And that happens more often than I think we all like to admit.
That's one department. I'm pretty sure it happens.
But I think that's a very important thing to zoom in on, because I think on your last live stream I watched, that you guys said, like, it's really important to have like a single source of information. So like having that identifier, and I'm kind of like really shocked just hearing that isn't the case right now. Like I'm not, like that isn't the case right now, like in government, and you would expect, like, because it's all, you're of course we're not in like, futuristic that we have e-governance and that you can just pull up everything. Like we're not there yet. I understand that, but it's also just very shocking that as a department head or as a civil servant that you have to do that with another department, that you're supposed to be able to have one source of information.
Let me give you an example. I went to Curacao when I was in 2018. I was still the head of the department then. Minister Gibson was the minister. I went to Curacao and I went to meet my counterpart in Curacao, the head of domain affairs. And he was a gentleman who had a department of 65 people. I was a young man who had 3 people working for me. And so you can imagine the level that I saw. The domain affairs has their own office in Curacao, and e-governance, everything is automated. They have a full task force working on what I just said, which is going after the outstanding long leases. And I was square one. I was starting it because before me, nobody was doing it, because everybody that was trying to do it was basically pushed out, quote unquote. So when that became the reality, I saw that not there's no way to fix the system from down here, because it's the foundation is cracked. The foundation is cracked, and that's just the sad truth. And that's basically how I think if anybody followed my campaign, they saw that I was very vocal against that type of stuff, because that's just my experience. That's what I went through, And it's you can't build a country if that's the mindset, or if that's how the system works. You need to revamp it. And yeah, we're not there yet. We're even further from where you thought we were. That's a fact. Yeah.
That's great.
Everything in a year.
That's really shocking.
No, but I think it's good to understand that we're further than people think, because you have to manage people's expectations. One thing we did, during when we were talking about our manifesto, for example, you can have any amount of ideas in there or whatever. And I said, guys, we're going to pick 5 things, 5 areas to work on, and we're going to have no more than 2 things per area. 2 to 3 things per area, because I'm not promising people the world in a 4-year term.
True.
It's not possible. It's actually not possible. It's not about moving fast enough. It's about capacity, and it's about, actually having a plan with deliverables, timelines, and a lot of people here,
reasonable.
They can't fathom that. Yeah,
I mean, Melissa's right, and I make a joke about it all the time. Me and Melissa say, "Yo, it's 3 terms. 3 terms. That's it. Maybe a 4th for me because I'm a little younger, but that's it."
Yeah.
But basically,
I'm 50.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but basically, the gag is that we say, what we want to see, what I want to see for Sint Maarten, I'm not going to be a part of the politics to do that. When I leave politics, the only thing that I would have set is the same cracked foundation that, that I'm seeing right now. And it's going to take more than a term, more than 2 terms, more than 3 terms to actually do it. It's really, the focus has to be on the generation after us actually, not to sound cliche, but, passing the baton. Because if the mindset is not there, and let's say within 5 years, God forbid, me and Melissa, or anybody from PFE does not get back in government, you would still need somebody with this type of mentality, maybe in another party, to actually push forward with it. Otherwise, it's not going to get fixed. It's not going to happen, and my expectations are at 0, basically, because we're basically just fighting every day, because that's how the system is at the moment. Maybe in 10 years, it's going to be different. We're going to have a majority, hopefully, and the dynamics are going to change. But at the moment, right now, it's not like you can really make a difference. Unless you would have to bring legislation forward, etc. Which we try to do. We've asked more questions than any other faction. But that also doesn't go a long way.
Yeah.
I think that's one of the questions that I had, like, personally as well. Like, you don't see a lot of legislation coming forward. And I heard like bits and pieces in different meetings and stuff like that. Like, we don't have legal assistance. It has to come out of our own pockets and et cetera, et cetera. So that kind of gave me some backup knowledge of like, okay, all right, I kind of get that, like why it's not going as fast as it should be. And then I also looked into up here that, factions in Parliament here have legal staff to help them with legislation. So I'm just like, I get it. Okay.
Give us a story about
You would
that. So, every faction is allocated staff.
Mm-hmm.
Faction staff, yeah.
Faction staff. And it goes based on the amount of seats you have. I think 1 to 3 seats, you get 2 people. 4 to 6, you get, I think, 5 people. And then 6 seats and above, I think it goes, yeah, I think it's maybe like 10 or something like that. I know that we made an agreement, and I said it. I'm not putting people in faction staff because they wore my shirt, And that is a lot of the. It's so funny because some of our colleagues were talking about it yesterday. Where they were saying that that the history has been that you put people in political positions because they are part of the team or whatever, and I'm just like, you guys are admitting this now. So it's been out of that, and that still carries on today. Let me just put it like that. And
nothing has absolutely nothing.
We made so in our faction staff we have someone who is a policy writer. And and also a researcher, and we have someone that is a legal mind, not an official attorney and not a legislative lawyer, but they have a bachelor's experience. And so that's where you kind of can set the groundwork. Because I'll be honest, if you are a private lawyer, in private sector, you're not going to leave private sector to come for Parliament money.
Oh no,
it's not a lot. In Holland, it's I don't know what they pay them in Holland, but it's also in Holland, they use that as a springboard into private sector, let's say. But here, you're not going to. So indeed, we sometimes have to go outside of Parliament to find legislative lawyers, people who can write laws, because not everyone can do that. When you hear our colleagues talk about consulting with so-and-so criminal lawyer or whatever, that person doesn't know how to write a law. So why am I going to consult with them on a law? So that's the issue that we do face. And a larger part of why, what it really boils down to is there's a lot of work into bringing even an amendment to a law. Mm-hmm. We're working on one right now. I guess we could talk about it because the press release is going to come out next week. We've set, for example, a request for research to the Social Economic Council on the affordability and accessibility of contraception to women. Ooh. Because we'd like to amend the SZV ordinance to allow coverage for birth control. Mm-hmm. Now, the steps that you have to take to get to the point where you can even present that amendment, it's like we start here and we have to go all the way to Marigot for it. Oh, no. And a lot of, I think, people, including our colleagues, don't recognize that, because there's a folder we got at the beginning of our orientation week for Parliament with over 100 pending ordinances and amendments. And most of them are stuck at specific points in the legislative process. It came back from the Council of Advice, and now the initiative taker has to react. They never reacted. And so if you don't really keep up with that, it doesn't. And also too, if it was started by, let's say we start something now and election happens and we don't get elected, someone else could pick it up, but they'd have to start all over. Or if, we do get elected, we as a faction would have to pick it up and run with it.
And is there no way to speed up that process at all? Or it's just there's no
that is the process. I don't know. At Council of Advice, I think they too are understaffed still because they lost a staff member last year to private sector. So I think Council of Advice also is understaffed. It's just a lot. We do not have that expertise. And then the problem is we don't encourage that expertise. Ray, I think, went into law because his mom was into law.
Mom
Yeah,
is one.
and
She's a lawyer.
here, if you think back at
That's
school,
cool.
were you ever encouraged
Mhm.
in high school to go into the law profession, the legal profession? Probably not.
No, definitely not.
Yeah.
But you know what? The thing is about legislation. What a lot of people don't understand is, it's always interested me, since in Holland, so I kind of like, really know how the process goes. And down here, I can tell you, it's not supposed to come from Parliament. The idea of legislation being created, the whole mindset of it, basically because the laws in Holland are the same as the ones we have, we tend to get thrown into the same boat. But Holland has 150 Tweede Kamerleden. One of their factions would be 21 people. Between them, you can come to some type of mindset to actually bring forward a law for a specific case. But you can't do that with two people, unless you're both legislative lawyers, because it's not going to work. Me, as somebody with a master's degree, I can't draft a law from start to finish. I would have to actually go and get some wetgevende boeken and actually go to find out what's the systematiek to actually write law. How do you refer to the leden before? It's a whole different study. And somebody that is elected, people voting for you does not give you that expertise. And that's just a fact. And you would have to actually do the research, do the groundwork, or get legal assistance. And you can either, use your money to campaign and send out a lot of press releases, or you can actually talk to lawyers and, talk to legal minds and actually do the back and forth. Talk to the SER, talk to the Council of Advice, and, not bring it forward until you actually have something concrete to bring forward. So, yeah, that's basically how it goes. And you'll see the fruits of it.
Yep,
Basically.
exactly.
That's true. And
we don't have that many press releases. We write our own.
Yeah, coming up. Don't worry.
We write our own. So it takes some time. It takes me some time. Sorry.
We write our own. You can quote us on that.
Strong. I am keeping strong.
Same here. I'm like centered. Centered. Like going back on like your you mentioned that in the opening packet you guys had like hundreds of stuff in there. I'm gonna be completely honest. So when I was a part of, well, I'm still kind of as advisor, but when I was a part of Youth Parliament back home, we actually presented a motion. I think 2 different motions actually that actually went to Parliament and got approved to be something that Parliament's gonna work on. And I haven't heard anything else since then. And that was when I was in high school. So I would say that'll be like 2014, 2015, around that point.
What exactly were you guys to work on?
I think one, I don't remember the second one, but I think one has to deal with dealing with sex offenders and pedophiles and along that line. Just because there was an issue where someone that we knew was in this weird position where a bus driver like locked the door and didn't like allow her to like leave the bus and like didn't like drop off by her stop. So like that situation, and they were like really underage too. So we were like trying to figure out that situation and present legislation around that. And then we had another one. Oh my gosh, it was so long ago, I don't remember. But we had another like 2 things that we actually worked on to the point that we actually like sat down and give a presentation to Parliament about those issues. So then, like, when you were a little young and stuff, you had a little hope. So like, yeah, I did something. And then now I'm just like, oh, okay.
You got an early taste of reality because emotion is basically that. To be honest, emotion is just a request, an informal request to government to please take this up. But it doesn't really have any type of They call us emotional parliament because we have a bunch of emotions. Emotion, everything. But as you see, doesn't work.
Yeah.
So, you actually would have to.
It's really sad to I think it's very unfortunate just for like on listening end or looking into Parliament that there's no way to speed up this process at all, because I feel like the world or the things that like the population or the communities are experiencing, like legislation is needed to, like really make change. And it's just like, it frustrates me sometimes. I'm just like, why is no one bringing a law? Like, why?
I mean, yeah.
You see, the thing is consensus. You need consensus. You need people who are on the same, train of thought to actually change laws. Because I can give you an example. Let's say there was a body, and I'm hinting it out there for all the youth who will hear this. Let's say there was a body out there who was interested in legislation, period, in laws. All laws are public. You can find all the laws on Google. So as a kid, as a 17-year-old who's in high school, it is possible to Google a law that, you heard about, the rent law, for example, something in the civil code. You can read the law and you can actually find an issue with it, and like you said, it takes the mass. You cannot do it alone. And that's the same problem that we have in Parliament. If you want to do that, but you only have 3 people in your faction or one person, actually, an independent MP, you can't even start the process. But let's say there was a body out there who's actually already doing it. A group of independent lawyers who just, in their free time come together. Let's try to see what's wrong with this law. Let's see what would need to be changed, and let's just put it in the background. And stuff like that is what MPs would have to encourage in order to get some feedback, because the laws are for the people. The people are the ones who have to tell us what has to happen to the laws. They're the ones experiencing it. I'm not the one going through most of the issues that the laws are there to protect people for, because I'm an MP, and that's a fact. So it's really a joint venture, to be honest. So it kind of works both ways.
I think I also try to encourage students, to get involved in bodies like that. I mean, you have the moot court, that is a thing that exists, and youth parliament and such, just to kind of drive. For me, with like youth parliament, I want to see the link better between parliament and moot court, because I think that will go a very long way to understanding at a youth level the legislative process, and then that would also allow them like, for example, teen times to ask sharper questions even, because people would be aware of what a process is, and they'd say, well, if you're working on, because I answered that request for like, what are you working on, from Teen Times and the Herald and such, and I knew that I wanted to keep it realistic, and I knew that some of my colleagues would go, all the way down that Old Town Road with a list of things that you cannot realistically accomplish in one term. Yeah. There's a lot of things and it's good also to have good ideas. And why we don't talk a lot about, Ray and I, of what we're looking into, is it is very damaging to me to announce that you're coming with something and you've not done any work to actually move it forward, and then it doesn't happen. And then people are like, but where's this thing that we so desperately needed? That we prefer to do a lot of the groundwork quietly, and then, bring it out when we're comfortable with where we're at. Because it could be that I have an idea, it arrests in the law, and it's just an enforcement issue, which we also have, unfortunately.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, for sure.
You have to actually know if you can change it, which is something that I, say a lot in Parliament. And what I also request for the ministers, because some of our MPs think that we can change a lot of things, but some of those things are not, regulated in national ordinances. And that's just, you would have to actually do the research. I understand the sentiment of wanting to change everything as an MP, because it is within my power to change the highest laws, but I cannot change the lower ones. That's not part of my authority, and we tend to forget that sometimes. But that doesn't mean that you can't, for example, motion a minister to check that policy, for example. That would be something concrete, and give them a time frame to do that. So you would have to basically know how to strategize and work with the tools that you have as an MP, or you can ask questions about it, try to get policy going. But lack of policy is a big thing in government, I can tell you that much. And yeah, that's how the system remains a little cloudy.
We hate to see it. We love to see it and hate to see it at the same time. So we could move on to the next main question we have. So yesterday, Friday, March 5th. Yeah, so Parliament had their second continuing meeting with the airport and everything that's happening with the airport. And yeah, just the airport. That is literally my question. How do you guys feel about literally everything that's happening in the airport and the importance that as a public that we should, be aware and focus and everything about it. So let's talk about the airport a little bit.
The airport. I feel like that's such a ragged knife in our back. You know what I mean? Like when you talk about the airport, you just get sensitive. It's just something you just don't want to talk about.
What do you guys think about the airport?
I feel like this is one statement in the sense of I feel that I will get my master's degree. I will get my first job. I'll probably have 3 kids before it's done. That's how I feel right now. And I left in 2016. I graduated high school in
2016. Yeah.
I am ending my bachelor's career right now. And I feel that we will me and Kamilah will return home and still go underneath a tent with my 3 kids. That's really how I feel right now. Like, I don't feel like we're...
So what do you guys think is the main problem that, would need to be solved? Because
it's definitely a leadership issue across all boards. For example, for me, my knowings of the airport is kind of slightly a little bit more in depth, just because I have an uncle that works air traffic control, and then my dad works at the airport as well. So, talking about structure, and my dad is like, I have to walk 20 minutes to go to my office. And I'm like, okay, you're getting a little older. You can't be running up the airport as much as you used to in 1985. So there's difference between all of that, etc. I do personally think it is a leadership issue, and it's I do want to enter a nice airport. When I go home, I might not be home for the next, let's say, 3-ish years. That is my goal. But I do agree with Nian. She'll have 3 kids, and that's when the airport's gonna finish.
And I think also that's to answer that question as well. I feel like there's so much processes and bureaucracy with this airport. I feel like it's layers to it. When y'all discuss it, I'd be like, I get it. I understand why we don't got an airport yet. Yeah, get it. Then the next level, I'm like, no, I don't get it no more. Why? I don't get it. I don't get it. Why? What do you mean this is confident? What do you mean that this agreement? And then back in 2012, what is happening?
What does 2012 have to do with not us having an airport?
We can't just have a decent airport. Why can't I go back to the place I started my HR career? Why? Well,
oh yeah. You said it. And how do you feel? Actually being in there and having to listen to it. Listen, it's all to my opinion, then that's why I don't really talk about it too much. I know a lot about what's going on as well, because I have a lot of contacts at the airport as well, but there's a certain venue to fight certain problems, and the floor of Parliament is not where most of what has been brought to the floor of Parliament. That's not where it has to be addressed. And I've been vocal about that a couple of times, because I'm not going to get pulled into it. Those issues are part of the executive branch. I am not going to micromanage the airport as an MP. I am volksvertegenwoordiger. You check, I am the wetgevende macht. I am not there to tell the CEO of the airport, go home, because I'm not the one responsible for any consequences that has to do with that, whether he doesn't have a job, where he has to go back to his family, whether he has to get a payout or whatnot, where he's going to go to the lawyer. That's all the responsibility of government. So why would I have an opinion on it? It's because I feel emotionally about it. I don't work at the airport. I have to look at it from an objective point of view, and maybe he has mismanaged it, maybe he has not, but those decisions are part of governments and as a shareholder and the airport, not us as MPs. And that's my opinion on it. That's what I'm sticking to. People can ask me personally for my opinion on it, but I'm not going to go on record about stuff that I know personally from people actually working at the airport, like your dad, for example, because I can tell you some stuff about a lot of stuff from working at the airport all the way up to the tenders. but that's not my prerogative at the moment. I'm not government. So.
And I think from like outside, like the population and the community, they do, because it was brought to the floor of Parliament, they have an expectation that you guys are supposed to do something about it because it's been a meeting. So it's even as like me as like a young person from somewhere, I'm like, yeah. So because it's on the floor, y'all should be doing something about it. Right?
Because we can do something about it. You guys think that we can motion it into fixation? You think but we can't. We
and
can
that's an expectation because it's been brought to the floor of Parliament. That is really the big expectation.
And that's the issue. That's part of the issue. Yeah, because as MPs, I can tell you, we can motion whatever we want. You can pass a law right now. You can't fire the CEO of the airport. That's facts.
You can give your public support or threats or whatever, but actually, it's just political.
We're passing unanimous motion. It would not be. Yeah,
it's not our realm of it's not our realm. But the airport has a very long and complicated history. Dating back to 1994 kind of days, 92. Back to the days of Claude Watty and them, and it's the structure that it has right now. The corporate structure it has right now is a result of that. They're indeed talking. When they ask about why haven't all the land assets, for example, been transferred, but the land assets are also an illusion. I think
I can tell you, for example,
the runway is owned by 3 different entities.
The whole runway has been a problem. People didn't want to sell. As being in domain, I'll tell you that much. That they couldn't buy the land because people refused, and you can't take somebody's based on the law, zoning plan. It's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of stuff.
Bring up, 2012 gets brought, because that's what we do. We throw past failures at the feet of people who are sitting there now. You can say, fine, this has to be worked on. The bigger question is that it has to be worked on now. That's why when you think about 2012, we did get money from the bond of the airport for those projects that they keep talking about. But guess what? Those projects were not carried out. So the bigger question I would want to have answered is, where did the money go?
So what is really like the point of having the meeting or the continuation or anything like that? It's like legislators can't do anything about it.
The meeting has to be concluded, one, and also I think, like Ray said, you can see already that there's people trying to fight personal battles on the floor of Parliament. Things that they may have with outside individuals that they want to then bring and use their power to call a meeting on the floor in Parliament as a weapon to beat up on someone in public. And we keep hearing local is but the CEOs are local.
Yes.
The CEOs are local. I don't really know what
And that's another thing as well. Like, I think that strikes a chord as well for people when they say like local, and also the fact that like this counterpart issue. And I feel like it really hammers home for people that want to come back home. Like, why would you say that? Like, why would you say that?
I personally believe that discussion is just based on based on which circumstances you're in at that moment. I'm not from here. You can hear it in my accent. I've lived Curacao most of my life. But that doesn't mean I don't feel like a local. I can honestly say that I feel more affinity for Sint Maarten than I do for Curacao, and that's facts. And most of my family lives in Curacao. But that shouldn't have anything to do with the fact that you're labeling me for anything. Basically, I don't agree with it. It's 2021. Nobody's a local. Everybody has family from somewhere abroad. Nobody was born and raised in Sint Maarten, and you can say that of every single one of their grandparents up to 10 generations. So what is the discussion, really? I like the same thing with the anti-Dutch rhetoric. I just prefer not to be part of it. I know it's there. You're not going to deny its existence, but I choose to not give it that energy. For me, there is no local or non-local. Of course, when it comes to CEO jobs being created, I do want to see, people return to Sint Maarten, and that should be part of whatever selection committee that those people have set up within those private companies and those, government departments. But that's not for me to discuss right now as an MP neither. You understand? That strays me from what I have to look at, which is the legislation. So it comes back to the same circle. We each have our part to play as long as we have the same goal, but some of us want to have a part to play in everything, but then you're not going to be effective in the part that you were dealt. So
exactly.
It's
It's just the last thing I want to say on this is the problem we have is there was a thinking back in Island Council days, and also at the beginning of Country Sint Maarten, that you could govern from Parliament because you were coalition or whatever, but that's not how it works. You have to let the government be the government.
do what they have to do. It's their responsibility. Exactly. If it,
hold them accountable, but you cannot govern from the floor of Parliament. That's not how it works.
That's why it's not well to put your friends there. It's the same discussion that we had in Parliament, and I've said it on the floor of Parliament. We decide to put people in positions that have no business being in those positions, and it's not a secret. Everybody thinks it and doesn't say it, but guess what? That's one of the things we get paid for, to talk, to say it, and it's part of a bigger problem, because if I choose to put my cousin as the Minister of Finance, for example, and I know we can't, without a calculator, it's not going to work, then I'm setting him up for failure. And why do I do that? Because I would want him to be dependent on me. But that's going directly against Tiras Politica. If I give you the opportunity to be a minister, you don't have to see it as, a win-win for both of us. Now, the law says that this part of the executive responsibility falls on your head. So your signature is going to count for you. Has nothing to do with me, and ministers understand that. You can't feel pressured by somebody that is not going to go to jail for you if you use your signature for the wrong things. That's a fact. You understand? So that's part of it, and that's something that we as PFP are not going to be part of. And that's basically why we don't have ministers. Yeah.
Well, good offer, but I'm on 24% battery, just to let you guys know. Sorry.
Yeah. So I just tell GV, somebody call GV, tell him turn on the current or something. Like, it's getting ridiculous at this point. It's been like an hour. But anyways,
not an MP.
Every week. Okay. So moving on. Okay, so this is my last main general question. So you guys are two of the youngest parliamentarians right now. So what lessons have you learned, and what advice would you give to fellow millennials or Gen Z Sint Maarteners who wants to make a change via public office?
I would say start reading.
Or getting involved.
The documents you hear us talk about, from the Constitution to the Kingdom Charter, which is up for much debate these days, but no one actually wants to make a move to change it. The organic laws of the country have been translated into English. You could even read those if you want. Google Translate is a heck of a thing, so you can even just take, like Ray said, if you're curious about something and you want to just take that law off of Google and put it into Translate, you get the gist of it. Learn to read the law. Like my dad always told me, don't just read from front to back. To the Memorial van Toelichting that gives the explanation and the spirit of the law, and read that first and so forth. And that's and also read your other neighbors are doing, how do their parliaments run? How do they handle legislation and stuff like that? And I think it's very important, Jimmy just back. I think it's very important to also, just better examples of how this is supposed to go. Because a friend of mine once said to me, she's and this is also to touch back on the thing. When I was growing up here, there was a lot, and still is a lot, of prejudice towards people who come from the other islands. We have all heard, people see them as ghetto, as uneducated, uncultured. But the average Dominican is more politically involved than the average Sint Maartener, if you really think about it. And that is because that's something that they're encouraged to get involved in, and encouraged to learn about. But here it doesn't really happen. I would really push young people to learn about how other islands do it. Just watch a video of their parliament in session. We based our whole off one statement made by now Prime Minister Mia Mottley in 2013 in Barbados's parliament, because it literally encompassed everything that happens here. It was rumors run rampant where conversation and leadership are absent. And that's basically how it goes. So I would say that Intro to Geopolitics on Coursera is a course. I would also advise, because the reality is
Coursera ambassador.
whether not a paid advertisement, but whether as a kingdom or as an independent country, you will have to deal with the world.
Yeah.
There's a lot of talk about masters and we got to get, but this is, and I've told Ray this many times, everywhere there's a master somewhere, especially when there's money involved. I've brought up the example of Greece numerous times in Parliament, because I really think that that's a good example of how even being a sovereign nation means that you have to answer to someone if you can't handle your own financial affairs. Understand? And to the point where they weren't allowed to change their own sales tax without it being approved by the European Union. The EU did that to a country, an independent sovereign nation. So those are the global realities we have to deal with. So whether we're staying in this kingdom or, we decolonize or get out of it entirely, that's the reality I want people to understand. There is not just going to be a carte blanche kind of operation. If you go to the IMF for money, you're going to get conditions. If you go to any lender for money, I wanted, like, guys watched the meeting yesterday.
That comes without conditions, don't take it.
Exactly. Did you pay attention to the conditions that were from the previous financing offer from Piper Sandler?
Yeah, that it was. Yeah.
Do you know what it means to pledge all your revenues towards that loan? That's literally one of the conditions of that loan. That financing, that beautiful financing offer that the good gentleman mentioned. 7% interest, more than $10 million debt service ratio, and pledge of all your revenues. Right. But then we talk about protecting the people's patrimony. So there's that.
My advice would kind of be the same. Just get involved. That's where it starts. I wasn't involved when I was young. I can admit it. Politics never. It bore me because I did not see the workings of it. That's why I think Sint Maarten was different for me than compared with Curacao. Because in Curacao it's 21 of them, but the population is twice as big, so you don't really see the MPs. You can't go out in a weekend and not see an MP, for example. In Curacao, you can do that basically every weekend. So it's for me. I just want the kids to get involved from now. Every single one of them just start to read up. The first thing that you need to understand is how it works. 15 of us, 7 ministers, 1 in Holland. We have a kingdom from the charter up to the constitution. Read those 2 laws, and from then, see if it catches your interest. And for most of them, I believe it should. Because you'll see how all of that, works up into the smallest details of your daily life. And once you kind of see what, the links are, it gets interesting. It gets interesting. And it's not, we like to talk about politics because as if it's a one big cesspool of corruption and fraud and money laundering. But, if people are there for the right reasons and you actually want to do good for the country and you see the results of it, it would pay off, and that should be the feeling that you're looking for as a politician. So that's the mission for us within these next 20 years.
20 years.
20 years.
Wow. That's 20 years.
All of in 20 years? Oh, never mind. I don't want to think about that.
That was like 3 terms.
Balls.
20 years. We will remember this interview, Kamilah. We will remember.
For sure.
20 years.
20 years from now. Oh my gosh. But when you mentioned just remembering the simple structure, my mind went back to 6th grade. So remember, did you do general knowledge in 6th grade, Nian? When we had to do general knowledge? Because I know St. Dominic primary system is a little different.
No, not you stating my education. Anyway,
sorry.
No,
sorry, we're also not.
Yeah, we did.
Okay, so I remember 6th grade general knowledge being the most chaotic 6th grade general knowledge ever, because that was 2011, so we just became country. So the teachers were like, okay, this is the new thing that you have to know about St. Maarten. And then in the middle of us learning about who was who in which position, government fell.
Exactly. Boom.
That was
Yeah.
2011 or 2012.
Yes. Like 2011, yeah. The 10, 11 year government fell. So then my 6th-year teacher was not pleased. So we had to relearn everything for the exam in all
That was
this.
the Carnival coup?
I think so.
And I think that was 2012.
I was in Holland.
It was
I had no idea.
That was 2012, yeah. I remember that.
Yeah, so it was like...
Because the Minister of Education at the time was in the Netherlands when it happened.
That gotta be rough.
And it was, yeah, that's pretty funny.
They did a number on us on Gen Z. They did a number on Gen Z.
A number of us.
They did a number on us. They were just like, let's make it more chaotic for you guys. I'm like,
yeah, I do have like friends from like around the region and stuff. And they would just message me. They'd be like, your government fall yet? I'm like, leave me alone, please. We have stability now, and we're gonna...
It's like, I'm kind of proud of how it's going. I was just like, you don't know anything about us.
Exactly. It's good that you guys say that because politics is an ongoing thing.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to get involved, you can't just read the law once and that's it. Yeah. You're gonna have to keep reading. You're gonna have to keep reading what's going on. But once you get into it, once you get into the structure of it, it becomes easy. It becomes easy and it becomes a part of just the daily life. Yeah, you know who's the MPs now. Oh yeah, you were an ex-MP then. It become, and that's what I would want it to become for society. Just not to know the MPs, but basically to know how it works, how everything works, what should be done, which minister to go to for which problem. Just to get informed. And yeah, from that it's gonna have this positive
thing though, Kamilah, like the fact that they don't mandatorily they don't teach us that mandatorily.
Yeah, we don't. Like, as soon as you go to high school, there's like nothing about St. Maarten government, etc. That's why we're gonna change the whole education system, Nian. That's what we're gonna do it.
And then the list of people that we need to go away and study will actually change.
We have plans.
We need to change those. I don't care about anything else at this point. Those are my priority.
That's a start.
We have priorities, and then like 2 days later, we're gonna be like, we're not running. We're not gonna do anything in politics. That's just
Listen, if you guys thinking about this,
because we have to retire eventually. So
No, you could be what? No, you can like be in Parliament as long as you want to.
I really don't want to.
Giving you guys history lessons.
No.
I'm not.
You're not going to ever have us stand up and have me repeat in 2020 and it's already 2035. That's not going to happen.
So wait, guys don't like the 2017 stories?
We have a plan, guys, that you guys can share this. When it's actually integrated, listen to me. This is the plan. They will finally integrate, all this knowledge, all this history. Because, different people are doing different things. It's like the Melee podcast. All this is going to come. This is my dream, guys. So I'm just like including you in my dream. All of you. One day that will be merged into a good textbook. So my kids can read about it. And I don't got to say, I remember somebody on Front Street knew this information. I don't have to say that because it will be in a textbook and it will be taught.
That's a very good idea.
You guys will come in as a special guest. She's like, and in 2020, we were the youngest. You see, there's a whole dream that I need y'all to fulfill. And then Kamilah's going to come in and she's like, and I helped build this textbook and there's visual aid. Like, this is a dream of mine, guys. Do you understand that?
Dream.
As of this current moment, there's no book.
Be part of the dream.
Yes.
There's no textbook. There's no
be part of the dream. I'm not going to be nobody else's dream. You got to be part of your own dream.
Yeah.
So
you start drafting the chapters, Nian. We start drafting.
We're going to start drafting the chapters because you guys are going to come in and you're going to talk about the political landscape in 2020 and how hard it was. This is going to happen, guys.
How easier we made it for you guys to just cruise on in.
Right. See, there's a plan.
I like how you guys keep saying cruise on in, like we're coming in, like we have not decided this situation.
I didn't decide at that age either. Trust me. If you would have asked me at that age, I would have been like, hell no. And look at me now.
It's the same thing. Like at that time, I was like, meh. And then when I decided, everybody tried to convince me not to, including my dad. But
I wish that my family would convince me not to. But they would be the first person to be like,
perfect for you.
I think like this is a whole dream of mine that we will have a textbook one day. Next question.
Happen. That's a very good idea, absolutely.
Right?
It is good though.
I have Google slide presentation templates. I'm ready for this revolution. I'm ready.
So while we on this, like, I guess happy-ish note, we have our like little fun question that I do just to lighten up the mood a little bit. So what is your go-to post? It was a long day in Parliament. I'm tired of everyone. I just need to relax type of routine.
Ray doesn't really post.
No, your post, but like you're like after Parliament, like Parliament done.
I think Ray would be quick to have a meme, like a post-meeting meme.
Yeah, I would go home and the people on my WhatsApp, they have fun. You know? Yeah.
Yeah, Ray is all about the meme.
It's the Muppet Show.
I'd probably tweet something.
Yeah, we know.
Probably the McWhiskey meme.
I do encourage everyone to follow Miss Melissa on Twitter. It is top tier content. It has cleared my skin. I feel rejuvenated.
Can we talk about how much times I would have to message? I was like, did you see what she said?
Yes, every single time.
Did you see what she said? Like I would wait, like Kamilah would send me that. She would be like, did you see? I didn't see. Like I didn't see. I was like, violence. Wow. Okay. Violence. Wow. Proud of that. Continue. Good content. Continue.
Yeah, please continue serving.
No, but I think I think that's also important because I try to be as honest as I am in Parliament. I try to be on social media because there's just certain things that's not the way it works. I don't like people to wallow in ignorance. And if I can inform someone on how to do it better, like you saw, I had a little exchange about casinos and the whole underworld blending business. You know, it's true. Not every casino is illegal or part of the underworld. However, you know, most countries have a gaming board and regulations in place. You know, the United States they developed the entire RICO Act around the existence of casinos and racketeering and stuff like that. But we don't have that. So until such time as we have that, you can safely assume that there's some funky stuff going on. You know, that's the reality of it. Cash heavy businesses are susceptible to the things that stop us from being able to use PayPal. You know, I see a lot of people blaming that on
the Ministry of Justice, for instance, that tackles that MO.
No, basically it's just about having your financial transactions and having your anti-money laundering laws and regulations up to par. And you know, we are a high risk jurisdiction, and you know, the unfortunate thing with our parliament is that we can't fact check on the spot. In other parliaments, the system is a debate system, so you can actually interrupt and say, "I'm sorry, MP Peterson, but that's incorrect." But you can't do that here. And if we could do that here, it would be a wild time because what I've started doing now is just taking notes. And you know, Monday we have our live stream, and in the live stream, I'm just gonna fact check and just say this is actually not true. You know, and yeah, that's one of the ways we try to just keep in touch and just be totally real and realistic with people. But yeah,
sure.
I'll keep tweeting. Don't worry.
Yes, keep tweeting.
And if you guys see me moving around, my daughter, she's right there. So I'm multitasking.
Oh, children. Sorry, they're so cute. But that is actually all I have. I don't know if you guys have anything you want to tell the people where they can like check you out, look for you, just
well, people can you can check me out on Facebook or Twitter. Either one is fine. Twitter is where the top tier content is at. And yeah, just unfortunately, you know, what we wanted to do was have like people be able to come to our office and have opening office hours, but the building is still relatively locked off to the public, so you can't just come and chill. But it's there's a mop. Okay. That happens. as soon as
they got the mop handed to
we're gonna have people come in, and in the future, we're going to also start back with like town hall meetings and stuff like that, because it's what we wanted to do all of last year. But, you know, the Pandulce got us all locked up.
Pandulce. Oh, gosh. Okay. Raeyhon, is there anywhere else people can check on you, hit you up, follow you places?
Me, I'm a pretty private person actually, but I do have Instagram and Facebook, etc. But you know, my Facebook as well, I'm the most talkative about Parliament, and yeah, you know, I try to keep the private life from the business life. You know, just like you guys said before you came out, they didn't think that we used to go to physical therapists. They thought we just, you know, became better.
He did not have to expose you like that.
Check. Since this faction is the fact check faction, I want to just want to say that I just, you know, you don't think that they have lives. Of course, you know that they have lives, but you don't think they have lives.
Yeah, like,
so what? Imagine if they knew we went to the bathroom.
Okay.
Okay, we do know you guys go to the bathroom because meeting does adjourn for 3 minutes
or longer, or does not start on time.
Because we know everyone has to go pee. So
or have a lunch break, but won't say it's a lunch break and will say it's an adjournment.
Yeah.
We adjourn for 10 minutes and the meeting doesn't start back until an hour later.
And I have to watch the flag.
That much I we do have rules for ourselves, so we try to stay within the half an hour.
Do you guys really?
Well, actually, yes. A lot of people don't know that you have a half hour to start a Parliament meeting before you actually have to cancel. You can't have the meeting. That's part of the rules. So that's, I mean, I would prefer to start at 10 a.m. on the dot because I'm usually there at 9:45. Raeyhon could tell you I'm always there early.
You're at 10:15.
Yeah. But you know, that's the way it goes, I guess.
Yeah. Maybe in 20 years that we won't just watch the flag for like 10 minutes before meetings start. maybe that will be the structure change that's gotten better.
On to some.
Alvin right now. Change up that flag.
We're on to some.
I'll call Alvin. I'll be like, Alvin, can we get a new flag? I'm tired of this flag at this moment. He probably tell me like stop it.
You know?
The one that is pretty. That is a pretty flag. Not us changing up the flag. That is
us trying to change up the flag when we had a whole situation about that. Too much changes. Yeah, relax. We have some things we need to do before the flag. We have a lot of things.
We have a lot of things. We do.
We have a lot of things to do.
With that, we're going to wrap up this episode. Thank you guys once again for joining us. And this was the We Talkin Podcast. And we'll see you next time. Bye.
You guys for having us.